What's happening, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. And on this week's show, we are going to cover our all 2021 all breakup team. Last week, we introduced you to our sweethearts, but you can't make room for new sweethearts unless you're going to break up with some. But I'm not a player, but tell you who is a player, that's my co-host. He is the man of the hour and the man with the power. He is Jerry Sinclair. Jerry, what is up?
Nothing, man. A fantastic introduction from a person who I could never break up with. It is just too good to sit back and talk Dynasty Theory once again, my friend.
I don't want to make the intro too long as, that'll be my little segue into ratings and reviews. And by the way, thank you. We are over 200. We're not at 200. We are over 200 total reviews across all platforms, including well over 180 on Apple, which is the big dog in the yard of podcast reviews. So thank you. But Jerry and I are a bit of goal chasers. So our goal is to get to 300 reviews and 500 YouTube subscribers by week 1 of the NFL season. How can you do that? Well, you can totally help us by going everywhere and anywhere, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and sharing the show. It is the fastest way to help us grow and get where we're trying to go and keep this train a rocking. So Jerry, before I get into what you just talked about, I want to make sure to give a shout out to a very nice review we got just today. And it says, "I love the DWZ. Something for everyone. I feel like I learn a lot. A must for fantasy players," and that is from Podbean, and that is courtesy of Andrew Campy. How about that on behalf of Andrew?
If I'm not mistaken, an Australian too. No surprise that we have the following in Australia. They are sweethearts, angels. Yeah, love it. Love to hear it, man.
Dynasty WarZone, internationally known yet locally accepted. I mean, we got folks from Iceland, Great Britain, all over Great Britain too. I mean, not just like England, like you think like London. I mean, like all over that part of the world. Iceland, we talked about this last week. Iceland, Australia. I mean, feels really good to know that we're bringing the People's Podcast international. But one thing you talked about was Dynasty Theory. So that is the one thing we have always done. And I will admit we do a little bit more of that over at the Dynasty Happy Hour Contractor. But going forward, Jerry and I are going to make sure we mix in a little bit more of the theory talk. I think a lot of shows do a very good job of identifying players, giving you player value, but there seems to be a need and a desire for more strategery, Jerry. Have you noticed that? Like a lot of shows can tell you who's a good player. They can't tell you how to build a winning roster. I feel like there's a lot of that, and that's the void you and I fill here at the DWZ.
And what is more important than knowing how to build a roster? I don't know what it is, which is why I like having these conversations, which is why I was happy and fanboyed the first time that I got to be on this show. Speaking of which, I was on my old laptop and crap you not, Randy, I found the first episode that I recorded all those many moons ago. And let me just tell you that I sounded awful. I was absolutely pitiful, and I sounded like a scared child that was curled up in the corner.
Well, you are now sounding much more closer to average. So you got that going for you, which is nice. No, it's been a big topic on Twitter lately, and it just feels like everyone's chasing clout. Everybody, it feels like here's the process for everybody. A, start something. C, profit. It's all that work in the step of B that seems to be the thing. But I've been doing my research, man, and we're going to continue to give you guys more theory-based and how-tos. Like I've always said, a lot of people can walk into Lowe's and say, that's a damn good 2x4. But you got to be able to take the 2x4 and turn it into something. That's what we're going to continue to do. That's why we moved all the rookie content to Sunday night's Rookie Rundown. So this way we can have some how-to best practices. This week we're going to wrap up with some breakups. I want to make sure to let you know that the DWZ Football Network's redraft show, the FF Smackdown, was live on YouTube last night, and our buddies Jake and Kyle took a turn at talking some Dynasty. They talked some Dynasty Not only, Jerry, did they steal our Dynasty love for the day, Jake, the new co host, was talking about poop. Jerry, he's talking about James Robinson, and he is talking about poop. He is totally stealing your gimmick in every sense of the word.
What is it that what is it, like stealing is the greatest form of
See,
flattery or something along the lines like that?
imitation
There you
is
go.
the greatest form of flattery, Jerry.
See, so I can't be upset.
Hey
Listen.
man,
I feel honored. In fact,
hey, you know what? Talking about James Robinson and talking about poop is right up your alley. I did mention the rookie rundown. This past Sunday, we had Alex Erickson of Pro Football Focus. He joined myself and Dallas Hyder, and we went around some rookies that he's not leaving his draft without, some rookies he's not drafting, players that he thinks are overrated, underrated, and he gave us his small school special. I'll be back here tomorrow night. I'll be here with the Dynasty Happy Hour contractor. And then I got a lot of love, man, on my Carson Wentz pod. I'm going to try to do that sporadically. I don't want to lock myself into another podcast. My wife would not love it. But I kind of want to do like a little grab bag of topics here or there, just sporadic. So that's what makes subscribing all worthwhile. And if you're not following us on social media, it's Dynasty Warzone on both Instagram and Twitter at Dynasty Warzone. And if you're not on social media, make sure to email us if you need anything. It's dynastywarzone@gmail. It's really, really that simple. But Jerry, that's it, man. 5 minutes of promoting, maybe a tad over because we talked about poop. We talked about theory and game building. But I'm ready to get into this all breakup team. I don't know about you. I'm ready. Are you ready?
oh yeah. And listen, if talking about poop is not going to be good for an intro, then you know what, Randy, I don't want to be on this damn show anymore because that is a hallmark of this damn program.
If Jerry said if loving poop is wrong, he doesn't want to be right.
That's
So we're going to jump into speaking of poop. Let's go right to the tight end position. It's kind of
you're an
it's kind of
effing pro, Randy. What a segue.
It's kind of poopy. I mean, if your tight end's not named Kelsey Kittle or maybe Waller, maybe Hawkinson, maybe we'll see.
Getting there.
He's getting there. Jerry, what tight end are you breaking up with in 2021?
Well, I've got a list of about, I don't know, 5 written on my notepad here, my handy dandy notebook with my handy dandy G2 Pilot pen, premier pen that I will only write with. Let's see, Gronk, Cole Kmet, Jared Cook, Zach Ertz. But I'm not going to talk about any of that because that's lazy as hell. Anyone that's listening to this show knows damn well that a lot of those guys, I mean, Cole Kmet's cute. I would need to see
long line of Notre Dame tight ends.
Yeah.
You know, the Eiferts, the Rudolphs, and now the Komets. So you can get a whole lot of tight end meh with Cole Kmet. Although I do kind of like Cole Kmet.
That's what I'm saying.
It's mostly the offense.
But I would need to see a tremendous upgrade at quarterback for me to even really fancy him at all, other than just being at the bottom of my roster. The other guys are old, or I mean, Zach Ertz isn't that old, but he's a dying asset. The guy I want to talk about is not a dying asset, and he's not old. In fact, he is almost certainly the youngest guy in this conversation. It's Kyle Pitts. I'm not done with him in Dynasty. I don't think he's a bad prospect. I think he's great. I am trepidatious about the fact that rookie tight ends never succeed immediately. That's not to say that this man cannot be everything that we wanted, but this guy already was TJ Hawkinson. This guy already was Hunter Henry. This guy already was Evan Ingram.
OJ Howard?
OJ Howard. David Njoku. Let's keep going. There has been a lot of these situations. Noah Fant. Some of those guys are relevant. Other ones, if you're new to Dynasty, you may have never heard of them, or you'd be surprised that somebody has them on the back end of their roster. Looking at you, David Njoku. It's just tough. And there's a lot of situations that he could land in where I just would not love it. And you're talking about a guy that is likely to go pretty early. I mean, the Detroit Lions are not likely to draft him, which is a good thing for them. But there's just he's not going to end up in a good situation. That's what I'll say, Randy, which means he's going to be on a bad team. He's probably going to be, growing with a bad team, which is not conducive to immediate value. And that means his most expensive point, at least in the immediate future, is going to be as a prospect, And I don't love that because that means you're drafting him. And then as he starts to play, he becomes a descending asset. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. I don't think you think that either. But in the short term, the year or 2 years, sort of, like Noah Fant. Like when Noah Fant came out, where was he going? 106?
It depends on it depended on the format. Like in a tight end premium, he might have been him. I think him and
well,
Hawkinson.
I'm talking tight end premium. If we're not talking
yeah,
tight end premium,
like
then
a 10.
he needs to drop.
Well, yeah. I remember correctly, and I'm quoting the UDPL, the Ultimate Dynasty Podcasters League, with guys like Tyler Gunther and Izzy Alcafas and people that you would know. If I remember correctly, that year, I believe Hawk and Fant went back to back at the 107 and the 108, if I remember correctly. If not, it was like the 108, 109, but it was right there in what we'll call the just past the midway point.
And would you say they have grown in value?
I think Hawkinson has a little bit. Like I don't think you could buy Hawkinson for like the 108 right now. My issue with Pitts is that Pitts. I saw a mock draft today on Twitter by some very well respected companies, we'll call them. And Pitts went at the 104. And what I'm Randy Young, but what Randy Jackson used to say on American Idol. For that reason, dog, I'm out. I mean, at the 104, at the 104 in a super flex, obviously T-Law's going one, but at the 104, you're really debating between Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Jamar Chase, and you took Kyle Pitts. If I had the 104, more than likely you have the 204, right?
Yep.
I would much rather reach a little bit at the 204 and maybe get Pat Freiermuth of Penn State or a Brevin Jordan of Miami. Or at the 304, you could reach for Jake Turd Ferguson or anyone. There's the kid from Boston College. I'm drawing a blank on. I agree with you. I think the Pitts is kind of like a snowball that you started on the top of a mountain, and as you roll it down the hill, he just continues to pick up steam. I'm not saying that he may not be a hit.
I agree.
At 104, but at what? So why Jerry's breaking up with him? And tell me if I'm wrong. It's the cost of acquisition. It's the barrier to entry to get him on your team.
Just for now, too. There's nothing that I am saying that makes me suggest that this man is not going to hit and could potentially be good.
Well,
but if you're taking a 104, a guy at 104 or 106 or 107, which I cannot imagine he drops past that, you're going to need immediate production, or at least you could potentially draft someone with immediate production in that section. And Kyle Pitts is not likely to be that. Even elite tight ends. I mean, George Kittle, he's an elite tight end, right? He gets injured a lot. So that leaves Travis Kelce. And he's in the situation with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Kansas City. There's only one situation like that. The amount of ways he could disappoint immediately in his career, I just don't love it. I don't want to risk that much right now for a tight end, which is really a luxury pick.
Well, let me hit you with some spots, and which one of these spots makes you want to take him at the 104 or the 105? You tell me where. So as crazy as it sounds, I don't think him and T.J. Hawkinson lined up as a complete mix match because I've heard a lot of people call Kyle Pitts the best receiver in this class. Forget tight end. They say he could be the best receiver. I don't know about that. I'm a big Jamar Chase guy. But, okay, so if he goes to the Bengals at 5, okay. Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow, okay, maybe that's justified, cool. A top 5 pick. The Eagles at 6, I don't think they do that. They could go quarterback. They could go wide receiver. They've already got Dallas Goedert. The Lions at 7, I don't think so. The Panthers at 8, I don't think obviously the Broncos wouldn't at 9. The Cowboys probably wouldn't at 10. They definitely need defense after investing.
But let's say they do. How pissed off are you?
Well, I'm not pissed off because I don't have him yet, but I know a lot of people in Devy. It's not good.
In that situation, exactly. You got
There's only so
CeeDee Lamb,
many
you got him,
footballs.
or you got
I mean, the spot that I see him landing in the top 15 or 16, I would not hate the Chargers, obviously. Yep. Although there is Mike Williams, Austin Eckler. We'll wrap up.
But for now, I think arguably that's one of the best situations he can land in too.
Correct. So here's how I would approach He could be a 2022 sweetheart. He can be a
Yes,
2021 breakup
absolutely.
and be a 2022 sweetheart
Agreed.
because
It probably will
because
be.
because he's one of those guys that will not be able to probably meet the lofty expectations his GMs will have of him. Therefore, he will be, I don't want to say a value, but you can probably get him next year in a tight end premium. You might get the owner who gave the 104 this year to get him. You might get him for the 108 next year. And you could be plotting your future. So mine is going to maybe baffle a few people because this guy was a sweetheart of a lot of people just a couple of years ago. For me, it's Mark Andrews, and man, this is a guy that he made his way into a lot of services rankings in the top three after a big 2019 where he had 850 yards, he had 10 TDs, but then he regressed a little bit in 2020. He only had 700 yards and seven TDs. But that's not really, the TDs are obviously going to fluctuate year to year. That's not my concern. It's 3 straight years where his yards per catch have regressed. He went from 16.2 to 13.3 to 12.1 yards per reception. And that's not even my biggest concern. Here's my biggest two concerns. Baltimore is not a high volume pass offense to begin with. This team only attempted 438 passes in 2020. And that's 28 attempts, not completions, guys and ladies. 28 attempts per game. And his 20.1 target share last year, well, that's going to come down as the Ravens are firmly in the free agent and rookie wide receiver market. I think cost versus potential upside of this guy, I would rather move off of him. I would be going to the TJ Hawkinson owner. I would say, hey, what's the gap for you between Andrews and Hawkinson? Maybe I can trade him for I don't think you could, but maybe like a Kyle Pitts type. Maybe you can, move into like a Hunter Henry. Maybe you can band-aid a guy for a year. I don't know. I just know that where he's going in startups, I know his current acquisition price in tight end premium and what I think his role will be and can be going forward, because you see other dynasty services, they're talking about Hollywood Brown's going to take a step forward. We're talking about they're going to be in the market for Kenny Galladay or Allen Robinson, or they're going to draft. I saw Rashad Bateman go to them in a mock draft. They don't throw the football that much in Baltimore. So is he going to continue to get a 20% target share? Probably not. So will those numbers regress even further? The math and the data would dictate that it's more likely they go down than up or hold. So for those reasons, I am breaking up with Mark Andrews in 2021. Jerry, anything on Andrews before you go into your first QB?
I think that's sort of like the Kyle Pitts situation. Good tight end, pretty young. There's just the acquisition cost, like we talked about with Kyle Pitts, it is too high. I mean, we could talk about Darren Waller and his old ass. I'm going to get more production, and he's going to be cheaper than him. Now, I haven't done a startup yet this year. I know we got one coming up in a little bit here. I'm going to guess Darren Waller has moved up a little bit compared to where the narrative has been around him. But I bet Mark Andrews is still going way too high for a situation that, like you said, is just not pass heavy enough for me. It's extremely touchdown dependent, which the whole position sort of is in general. But I'm with you. Not mad at you at all for that.
I would rather take him to the Mike Gesicki owner, who was my tight end sweetheart last week, and see what that owner GM would give me in addition to Mike Gesicki to get Mark Andrews.
What if it's a second? You cool with a second?
Probably in a superflex tight end premium, sure, because there's about 10 wide receivers I really like, about 5 running backs, 5 quarterbacks. You sprinkle in a couple of tight ends, and you're looking 24 deep. So yeah, I would take Gesicki in a decent. I would prefer to be like the top half of round 2.
Right.
But I'm gonna listen. Maybe I can get 2 seconds. Maybe I can get like the 208 and a 2022 second and just put that in my hip pocket. And I'm big on Gesicki. But who are you not big on at the QB position? Who are you out on, man?
I'm going to go Jalen Hurts. Why not just keep going polarizing players? This is another situation where I wouldn't be surprised if he hit. I don't love him. I watched him at Alabama, and what did we see in the biggest game? We saw him go to the Pine, and we saw Tua come in and win the game for him. And then we saw him go to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, who can just fire Heisman Trophy winners out like it's nothing. And he did good for a while when they played the bad teams. Then you got to the end and they fell off a little bit. Now they were still a good team and he was okay. Slipped to the second round for a reason because he's raw. I think he is a better fantasy football quarterback than he is an NFL quarterback, and that is not conducive to be a long-term NFL quarterback. You can rush for 2 touchdowns in that last game where he got benched, and everybody who started him enjoyed every second of it. But if you're an NFL team and you have, his completion percentage was ass, and he threw 3 interceptions or whatever he did, and he was ass, and then got benched for some guy who's ass. It's just, I don't know. And the sophomore slump is reality, and that is with elite quarterbacks. That's with good quarterbacks. A guy that has his challenges and does not exactly have the greatest team around him. I mean,
Well,
I don't think he
that's my
does.
big fear. That's my big fear is that the offensive line is bad. Now they should get Brandon Brooks back, but outside of that, I mean, not great weapons. They've let Deshaun Jackson go. They've let Alshon Jeffrey go. They're probably going to let Zach Ertz go. So he's going to go into this season with maybe a rookie, maybe. And for me,
New
my
head
big
coach, new all
my
that.
a head coach that was brought in to fix the other guy.
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni has no track record with a mobile quarterback in the NFL. He's dealt a lot with the Phillip Riverses and the Jacoby Brissett's and the Andrew Lucks of the world, not the Jalen Hurts of the world. And there's no quarterback in Dynasty who has a wider range of outcomes. This guy,
That's the big one.
and for me, if someone says a year from now, Jalen Hurts was a top 8 QB, thumbs up, man.
Yep.
I totally see a scenario where that happens. If someone told me in April, Philadelphia takes Trey Lance with the 6th pick, and here's my biggest fear, Jerry. I know you love the word. My biggest trepidation is that Philadelphia, the day. So there you go. Philadelphia, you have the opportunity to get this right coming right out of the chute. Carson Wentz is heading to Indianapolis. We can name Jalen our starter. Here's what we're going to do. They wouldn't name Jalen Hurts the starter on that day. Not only did they not name him the starter, but they said they were bringing in competition. That could be a veteran. That could be a Fitzmagic. That could be who knows who. Or it could be Trey Lance with the 106. So I agree with Jerry. And Jerry, I don't want to take your time, but to see a range of outcomes where a guy could not even start one game or be a top 8 QB, that's a gap the size of the Grand Canyon. And in a super flex league, I cannot invest where I see him going at the 4th round of a startup and watch my team get blown up. No way, man.
If you have Jalen Hurts, if you already have a standing team and you have Jalen Hurts, you should be thrilled that you have him because you have that opportunity and it almost certainly did not cost you much. Maybe you took a back end second last year and you went for it because you thought Carson Wentz was still going to be the guy and you just wanted to hold on to him, a little Jordan Love-esque situation. Like you said, the startup situation now it's different. I was talking to Matty Big Chest, our graphics guy, yesterday. He said something along the lines that he went in the 106 of a startup. That's too risky. There's a chance it hits. Don't get me wrong. There's also a chance I go to the gas station and I scratch off a lottery ticket and I hit it for $1 million. But more than likely, I'm throwing that $20 and I'm ripping it up. Now, this is not an entirely similar situation. It's just like you said. With the situation that we are in now with Jalen Hurts, where we don't know, to invest that heavily into something that could truly be worth a wet sock in several months is just too risky. It really is. We always talk about having that one guy that's risky. You can shoot for the stars. If you have a set team, okay. But if we're talking about a startup, he's too expensive for me. I don't love it. I really don't.
You're gambling.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
You're at the craps table in Vegas. You're on a hottie, and but you can't win that table. They've got enough money to keep rolling with you, and I don't blame you. Now, if you've got a really good team and you want to see how high is high, okay. But if you also want to be a little bit more conservative and cash out, okay too. Again, I don't want to pretend like I have all the answers on Jalen Hurts. I was talking with Ray Garvin, and we agreed to call him the ultimate choose your own adventure novel. If you
Yeah.
remember, Jerry, remember the book fair when you were a little kid?
Oh yeah, I loved that thing.
You had like 5, $10 in your pocket, and you were king for a day, and you used to buy those choose your own adventure books. That's Jalen Hurts, baby. You might read the chapter where Jalen Hurts is a QB1, and you turn to that chapter and you're like, wah, wah, wah. Actually, they drafted Trey Lance. You're like, shit. Or you may choose the adventure and Jalen Hurts is a top QB. I'm gonna break up with one of the top QBs in all the NFL. He's actually the reigning and defending MVP of the NFL. It's Aaron Rodgers, guys. He just turned 27, and please don't give me
37.
yeah, and just please don't give me Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the exception. He is not the rule. The best case for Aaron Rodgers is Drew Brees. And I'm all on board with Aaron Rodgers in a redraft in 2021, but he is giving you. This guy did CPR on his dynasty value, and the Shanahan bump, that's the bump in production that comes in year two of the Shanahan offense. We saw it a couple of years ago with Matt Ryan and his MVP season. We saw it in year two with Jimmy Garoppolo when he went to the Super Bowl with the 49ers. Even Jared Goff in a Shanahan-based system had a great year in 2018 in the Shanahan system. And Aaron Rodgers just had this. He gave you everything you could ever want to break up with Aaron Rodgers. Everything under the sun. A huge season. They may or may not get him more talent. But here's the thing. If I could take Aaron Rodgers and I could get Joe Burrow, if I could take Aaron Rodgers, I would add to Aaron Rodgers to go get a Justin Herbert. This is dynasty. This is the future. And a lot of times there's some confusion because we continue to bring more new players to dynasty. And you're just used to winning. I build the best team and I win. But here's the thing. When you don't win in year one, then you're caught with a big shiny turd in your hand. And guys like Aaron Rodgers, guys like Julio Jones, they age out and you can never extract any real value for him. Aaron Rodgers coming off this season, coming off year two in the Shanahan style offense, he gave you the big bump. The time is now. You need to break up with him. You need to go out and move him in your super. If I could get one of these rookies, and I know someone out there screaming at their radio or screaming at their phone, you got to get more for Aaron. Listen, I would love to get more, but I would also love to get out without my junk in my hand. So I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move Aaron Rodgers, Jerry. I'm breaking up with him. Who is the next QB you were breaking up with, man?
The Detroit Lions' newest addition, Jared Goff. I just think the Lions are going to be
Hurtful,
dog crap.
just hurtful.
It's. I am somewhat excited about the things that the Lions are doing, but they don't have Sean McVay. They don't have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee and Cam Akers. I mean, Swift is good, but I don't love it. I don't love that situation. They're talking about doing the franchise tag for Kenny Galladay. I don't really think they're going to. Even if they do, okay, that's it. That's what you got. And then you got Quintez Cephas, who I am damn near certain will be out of the league sooner rather than later. I know we had a little talk about this in the GOAT chat earlier. He just, there's a lot of young talent. To steal Randy, there's a lot of young talent in this league, and he's just going to be a person that's out of it. I don't think the Lions are going to be great. I think they signed Dan Campbell to a 6-year deal for a reason. You don't sign a guy who has never really been a head coach other than his little interim stint to that long of a contract unless you expect it to be a rebuild and to be rough for the first couple of years. And I don't think Jared Goff is going to be the long-term answer. I don't think they have faith in him. Clearly, the Los Angeles Rams did not have faith in him. I have to accept the information that has been given to me. Depending where he falls, because a lot of people do hate him, maybe he could become a value. I guess I'll just have to wait to see how startups go. But I don't.
Can I share with you why I'm nervous about Jared Goff?
I would love to hear it.
Your boys in Honolulu Blue, who I love. I love me some. You know, I am a Jared.
They're gonna let you down.
I am a harsh Jared Goff apologist. I'll be honest.
Me
I
too.
do.
I am too.
But here's my fear. And this is from a dynasty standpoint, guys. This is dynasty. This is the long term. The Detroit Lions play one of the tougher schedules in the NFL next year. So they'll play the Lions twice. They'll play the Vikings twice, the Bears twice. So there's 4 games right there against playoff teams, and the Vikings are always good. They play the NFC West, so they're going to play the Cardinals. They're going to play the Niners. They're going to play the Rams. They're going to play the Seahawks. They're going to play the AFC North, which means Steelers, Browns, Ravens, even the Bengals. Where are the wins? Where are the wins? And here's the thing. If this team goes, is it inconceivable to think that the Lions go 4-12 next year? Absolutely not. And if you go 4-12, you know what kind of draft pick you get? The kind that allows you to draft the future quarterback.
And you have multiple assets from the Jared Goff trade, so you can move wherever you want in the draft.
Hey, you know, it's one of those things you got to look further down the road in Dynasty, and that's why I'm moving on from this guy, and that's Ryan Tannehill. I love me some Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he's been as good as gold. I can't tell you how many startups I did in 2019 where I picked him up as a QB 4 or 5 because I had zero confidence in Marcus Mariota. And by week 7, when he took over, statistically over the last, 25 games, he's been on par on a points per game basis with Patrick Mahomes. He's been that good over that time frame. But here's my concern. This is what I know of Ryan Tannehill. He's 32, going to be 33 before week 1. He's had multiple major knee issues, and he's got a brand new offensive coordinator. Now, he was shit under Adam Gase, and he was fantastic under Arthur Smith. And now we're going to usher in Todd Downing. And Todd Downing did not set the world on fire the last time he was the offensive coordinator in Oakland. As a matter of fact, Derek Carr in 2017, under Todd Downing, had his second worst statistical season of his career and the absolute worst season of his career outside of his rookie year. So what does that up to? Trepidation, baby. And here's the thing. He's given you a sell window. Unless you just did your startup in 2020, you're one of those, there's going to be a huge rush of children from the COVID pandemic, much like there was a huge rush of dynasty leagues. And if you drafted him in 2020, okay, your acquisition cost is a smidge higher. But if you were like me and you got him in 2019 or your league's older, you probably got Ryan Tannehill for a pretty good price. Now's the time to cash out. Could he be great under Todd Downing? You're damn right he could be damn great under Todd Downing. And he could be the drizzling shits too. But I'm never going to find out because I'm going to break up with that man before week 1. Love me some Ryan Tannehill. Jerry, anything on Tannehill before we move this thing on?
That's Derrick Henry's team. It's always been Derrick Henry's team. Yeah, no, I'm good. Never been his biggest fan. I thought he was a good value for where he was at, but no. So what are we going to talk next? You want to do running back breakups? You want to do wide receivers?
Before we do that, I'm going to call a timeout for our friends at Viridian Global. This is our official apparel provider. This is where you can get that sweet hat that Jerry's wearing if you're watching live on YouTube, as well as t-shirts and hoodies with all the graphics behind us if you're watching on YouTube, whether that's the Army inspired badge logo, the Air Force inspired winged logo, and so many more. And by the way, today I had a great idea for a shirt that I've got to get worked up with our boy Matty Big Chest before we get it on there. And it is going to be a big seller because the saying on the back is going to be both inappropriate and hilarious all at the same time. But you'll never know if you're not following our good homies over at Viridian Global. Not only do they support us, they support Destination Devi, our boy Ray GQ. They support the Dynasty Happy Hour, the GOAT District. If you're into fantasy and dynasty fantasy football and you just want some unique gear to wear around and support some good people, man, Viridian Global, Veridian, ViridianGlobal.com, and make sure to flag or bookmark that Dynasty WarZone page. Jerry, I'm going to go first on this one. I'm going to break up with a guy I was pretty sweet on this time last year. And I'm going to Vegas, and it's Josh Jacobs, man. So as I was doing my research on Mr. Jacobs, here's an interesting stat for you. In 2019, his rookie year, he averaged 4.8 yards per carry, dipped almost a full yard to 3.9 yards per carry. And, he's weird. He is weird in the fact that he is no longer a rising star for me in Dynasty, but he is the safest RB2 in Dynasty. Between his first round draft capital, where they took him late in the first round in the 2019 draft, and two more relatively cheap deal years on his rookie deal, he's going to be solid. I mean, it's a solid offense. He had double-digit touchdowns last year. My concern is this. He is averaging right at 2 receptions a game, and that's across his 28-game career sample size. And another stat blew me away. Zero, Jerry, zero career receiving touchdowns. And it always feels like they're always going to have some POS running back in the backfield, whether that's Jalen Richard, not Richard, not up in here, Jerry. I'm not even going to play the sounder. Not up in here. It's not Richard. It's Jalen Richard, and then something named Devontae Booker. When John Gruden and the offensive coordinator feel like it's more important to put Jalen Richard and Devontae Booker in there on third down, I can't trust Josh Jacobs. Again, if you have him, it may be a sunk cost, but if you can get someone to give you like a top 6 pick in a super flex, or maybe even a top 3 rookie pick in this class, I'm going to listen. I am nothing against Josh Jacobs. He was technically an RB1 last year, but man, I see a lot of up and comers like Cam Akers, like J.K. Dobbins, and so many more. And if we look back a year from now and Josh Jacobs was the RB18 for 2021, are you shocked, Jerry? Are you like, oh my God?
I mean, not crazy shocked, but I do think he's going to finish. I think he'll probably be a boring RB1. I think he'll be the guy. I think he'll be the guy that finishes as RB11. And it'll be because
I was
he
going to say
plays 16
16.
games. I just think it's because he'll play 16 games. He is boring.
It's
I
a
thought he
solid
was going to
offense.
bro. I thought he was going to take that next step too. He didn't. And you need passing. You really do. He maybe there's a chance he becomes a value because a lot of people are down just like you are, and me for that matter. So there's a chance, and he's not dead. And there's a lot of running backs where the impending cliff is coming. And like you said, I don't think that's the case for Josh Jacobs. So you can have him and you can be fine with him. But I'm cool with it. I don't hate you. The guy I'm going to talk about though, I think the cliff is coming, Randy. You have been trying to push this man off a cliff for a long time, and I just keep reaching my hand out and I hold him up. And this year he finally emerged. He's got the feet of Le'Veon Bell, and he's got the awareness of Jamal Charles, and whatever the hell that graphic was.
He's got the agility of a panther,
Yeah,
and the vision of a hawk,
yeah, whatever the
the
hell
strength of a rhino.
dumbass ESPN graphic was. My guy's David Montgomery. Um, I don't love the future of the Bears. Believe it or not, I have always thought the Bears are dog crap, and yet somehow they still make the playoffs sometimes with. I mean, the Lions are bad, but it's so horrible to watch the Bears. This dude was so propped up by touchdowns that it's unbelievable. I mean, you look through like the first 9 games, this man had, I think, like 2 touchdowns. And then the last 6, he had like 8. He just here. Let's look at his rushing yards. You ready for this, Randy? This is going to be a great time for both of us. Okay. 64, 82, 45, 27, 29, 58, 48, 89, 30 before you start getting into where he actually starts scoring touchdowns. But still, none of those are great. He did catch some passes. He was usable. He finishes like RB6, which is just stupid to think about because, he's a guy that can break tackles and fall forward for an extra 3 yards, which is nice from time to time. I don't love the longevity of this. Going forward, it just seems like a fool's errand to try and invest in that. Like, do you think he's going to get a big major contract from a team?
He's going into what, year 3? So there's
Yeah.
no rush. I think he was a second or a third round pick. So
Yeah.
they got third. He was a third round pick, 73rd overall. So he was high third round pick. Here is my, I don't want to say concern, but I just don't think the receiving yards are going to be there and the receptions are going to be there the way they were this year. I mean, he had a game with 7 receptions, with 9 receptions. He had one with 5, 5, 4, 4. So I mean,
He
he
gave you
had
the opportunity to sell him, is what he did.
he gave you 54 total receptions. And but here's the thing: how many of those 54 receptions, more than double, by the way, his rookie year, where he only had 25? What happens in 2021 when Tariq Cohen's back from the ACL? Does that go back down closer to 30? It feels like it would. It feels like he was the beneficiary of the Bears not having a great offense all the way around, and it felt like him picking up some receiving game work he may not have got had Tariq Cohen still been out there. So I'm with you. I'm going to hit you with my next guy though, Jerry. And this one may wow you a little bit, but what I'm trying to do, and I could have kicked the show off by prefacing this, is I'm trying to give you names that, from a redraft standpoint, all the guys that I've mentioned so far, I'm totally on board with every single guy that I've told you to break up with. But this is Dynasty. I'm trying to give you some thoughts. And again, this goes back to that theory. Anybody can tell you that David Montgomery had a good 2020. How do we operate with David Montgomery going forward? And that's why my guy's Dalvin Cook. Hey, listen, man, I know Dalvin Cook had his clearly the best year of his career last year. But with running backs especially, I'm going to be a year early than a year late. This guy is going into year 5 of his career. He's been paid. I will tip the old Titleist cap to him. He has played 14 games 2 years in a row, but this doesn't change the laundry list of injuries this guy has going back to college, even into high school. I think he had a shoulder injury there. And it's just time to move on. It doesn't mean that he can't win you a league. It just means that I would much rather be going after younger guys like your boy in Honolulu Blue, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson. I don't think you're getting Jonathan Taylor for Dalvin Cook, but I'm looking to go
Well,
that.
maybe. I mean, it's close.
Man, you
I
would
know.
have.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You probably do have to add something.
It's not. It's possible versus probable. Is it possible you could get him?
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Okay.
Is it
Fair.
probable? Probably not. But I'm looking to get in that next tier, man. If I could get Cam Akers and a 2021 first, even a mid first for Dalvin Cook, it feels like I'm selling low. But that's okay. I'm going to lose the occasional trade, and I'll put lose in question marks because here's a bit of dynasty advice that you're not going to hear in a lot of shows. Jerry, are you ready?
Fire. Put it away.
Stop saying Cam Akers and the 106 in a superflex tight end premium. Start saying Cam Akers and Trey Lance. Are you going to take Cam Akers and Trey Lance in a superflex league for Dalvin Cook? If you need a quarterback, it may not be a bad time to make that move. Are you going to take Cam Akers and Jamar Chase? Because there's a real world where 2 running backs or 1 running back and a tight end and 2 or 3 quarterbacks go, and maybe Jamar Chase falls to the 106. Are you going to take Jamar Chase and DeAndre Swift for Dalvin Cook? I'm going to. So to me, this is not about breaking up with Dalvin Cook because I think he's a turd or he's going to have a. And Jerry, we do love poop here.
Yes.
We certainly do. There's a lot of poop references here in the Dynasty WarZone. It's nothing like that. It's simply that it's time to start thinking about maximizing the value and continuing that influx of young talent. Jerry, where are you at on Dalvin Cook? You see him a lot there in the NFC North.
Yeah, he usually torches the Detroit Lions, and he will do that going forward. Um, I have sort of been a guy that is not as high on Dalvin Cook, outside of when he was a prospect, in which case I would have built a statue for him. I get what you're saying. And that's the thing about this conversation that we're having. It's not that when we say we're breaking up with a player, unless it's David Montgomery, which yes, and we know that you don't love him. And there is certain players that
I don't hate him either. He got me to the playoffs in the Scott Fish Bowl. He carried me through many an injury. He carried me through Taysom Hill and hurting Alvin Kamara's value. It's not that. Again, it's the I'm looking to cash my chips in but before my chips turned to less valuable than they were, say, a month ago.
How many times on a podcast, on Twitter, in a Dynasty article, everywhere? What is it? I mean, what are we hearing about right now that's going on with this GameStop and all this investing and stuff? Buy low, sell high. Guess who's high right now? It's Dalvin Cook. The problem is everybody wants to just sit on the toilet. They don't want to actually shit when it comes to that situation. They
Poop.
never want to do it.
If the kids at home are playing a drinking game based around poof references,
They're
please
so drunk right now.
please call an Uber, call a friend. Don't get behind the wheel. Totally dangerous, and that's what I think. That's our larger point. You know, at some point the GameStop bubble burst, and some people got really burned. And if Dalvin Cook, a guy with a pretty littered track record of injuries, if he gets hurt again, your bubble burst, and you were caught.
And how many good young running backs are there in the league? He could easily drop to RB8, 9, and right now I would say he's almost consensus, like RB2, RB3.
The NCAA gave us what, 6 last year?
Yeah.
The big 5 and Antonio Gibson. And we'll say 7, your boy James Robinson.
There you
they
go.
gave us 7 last year. They're going to
That's
give us
absurd.
at least, they're going to give us 3 or 4 this year.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. So we're going to springboard off of his great, and I mean great 2020, to give us an opportunity to build infrastructure for the rest of our roster. All right, Jerry, you owe us one more running back you're breaking up with.
I am between two. I think I'm not going to say Alvin Kamara because we just had that conversation on Dalvin Cook, and it's the same exact situation, except for potentially Drew Brees gone, and we saw how he was in the passing game without Drew Brees, and it was gross. But so I am going to skip that one because it's the exact same argument, and we're trying to convince people we're in different situations. Let's talk about Aaron Jones. I don't think he's going to be in Green Bay. Now, I don't know what you think, but I don't really think he's going to be there. And that has been a man that has been so good at finding pay dirt. 27 touchdowns in the last 2 years, 35 in the last 3. And that's just rushing the ball. He's also had 6 touchdowns receiving. So the dude has been a touchdown monster. And I don't think he's going to find that wherever he goes. I know there's some rumors that he's going to Miami. Listen, he could be 1,000-yard back and he could get 6 touchdowns and he'll be fine. But that's not what you're selling him at right now. That's not what you would get if you tried to sell Aaron Jones. You're going to have to add some juice, almost certainly, to get some of these young guys, these 2020 rookies, potentially 2019 even. Like, I'll take Miles Sanders in a heartbeat. Like, I'll add a little bit too if I have to, even though he struggled. So you might not have to, and Aaron Jones didn't. I just, he's on the verge of being 27. I think this is going to be his age 27 season. And he's going to sign a long-term contract until he's 31, and you're going to rely on him until he's 30. Listen, there's a chance it works out that way. But history is not on your side. So I am going to, I think now is the time before that value starts to dip. Especially because it could change very quickly. So this is a situation that you should definitely be monitoring now, because in the event he goes to a bad location, Randy, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to take an immediate loss.
Well, he's a running back. And by the way, it came out on Twitter today. I haven't seen a fluff piece like that since the last adult film production. I saw a lot of fluff, that a lot of interest, and he could command up to $15 million a year. You know who leaked that? His agent leaked that to drive interest. He's going to be fine. Again, this is a guy that if you draft him and redraft in 2020, I'm going to give you 2 big thumbs up.
Yep.
This is Dynasty, 27 years old, running back going to team number 2. It's, to Jerry's point, it's not a track record for success. Could it happen? Sure, it could happen. Does it happen a lot? Probably not. Could he take a bad fit because he's chasing dollar bills, y'all? Sure he could. And I can't say I blame him from a businessman standpoint and just a common sense standpoint. If a team that's less than ideal fit is going to give me $3 million more a year or $10 million more guaranteed, I've got to take that. I'm a running back. I play the most disposable and injury-prone position in the NFL. I've got to take that money, Sonny. And hope springs eternal. If he goes to Miami, trade him. Just trade him. Go. I mean, if I could get an even up, for Cam Akers, maybe I can get Cam Akers plus. Obviously, if you can't tell or didn't listen to last week's show, your boy here, big on Cam Akers. But if I can move him for one of these 21, 22, 23-year-olds, I'm in, man. And especially if I can move him for him plus. I think Aaron Jones, Jerry, great call. I'm going to call my final timeout. I got one left. And I'm going to tell you about our Patreon. And speaking of your boy, Jalen Hurts, the number one DM I've been getting from the Patreons is on Jalen Hurts. Everybody's fascinated on him. And that's patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. And man, this is our community. And everyone's looking to be part of a community. We've all felt weird, man. We've all felt weird at a work function, at a significant others function, where we just want to talk about fantasy football. But you can do that. You can duck in a corner and you can DM with me or Jerry or one of the many dozens and dozens and dozens of Patreons at the Dynasty Warzone. Jerry, we'll talk fantasy football with you. You can duck in the kitchen. You can talk to the guy serving the Horace Dervase, and we'll talk some Dynasty with him and the Mater D.
Listen, and it's not going to be that awkward conversation. Do you know how when you hear somebody over talking someone and they're like, oh yeah, I like the Chiefs or whatever, and you're like, okay, that's the guy I got to talk to. I can talk a little football with this guy. And you walk over there and you start mentioning stuff, and then all of a sudden they give you that look, like you've said something they have no idea what they're talking about, and they're just sort of nodding their head, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I think LaShawn McCoy is going to be really good in that offense this year, and you're like, farts, like come on, like you already know Jerry, you're overqualified for the situation.
Now, if you think LaShawn McCoy is going to be good in any offense next year, I may have to take out a help wanted ad.
Talking about. You always end up talking to that guy. Right. That's what I'm saying.
I got you. Oh, yeah, for sure.
You just got to be like, okay, I'm gonna go get a drink real quick. That's not what the Patreon chat's like. They are degenerates.
And then you go to the chat and you're like,
the obscurities that we will get into.
This guy at this party just said LaShawn McCoy's going to be good next year. I mean, that's the kind
and then we can make fun of him. It's a good time.
And this is what people want. Again, a lot of podcasts have player valuations, and they nail them. A lot of great takes on who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, a good season, a bad season. But, man, we have an entire archive of strategic-based podcasts that are already there and more on the way. We got one coming up this week that I'm going to share with the Patreons, a tool that's easily accessible everywhere that I think is better than calculators but work well in conjunction with calculators. On top of that, we have startup season. We have startup season right around the corner. You'll wind up being in the league with me or Jerry or maybe both, as well as Maddie and Lou and Dr. Kyle and Evil Kyle and Jake and Tyler and just so many people. And it's all available at Dynasty Warzone's Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. All right, Jerry, I'm going to give you my first guy at the wide receiver position because I want to give you a minute to catch your breath. Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Hurtful. I know I'm going to hurt your heart. It's Juju Smith-Schuster. All right, it's Juju Smith-Schuster, the soon-to-be free agent. But here's my question with Juju. Is Juju ever going to command more targets than he's seen in Pittsburgh? He's had 443 targets in his career. That's 56 a game. That's 56 games. That's 7.6. Is he going to get 8 targets in the next offense? And he's got season yardage totals of 917, an eye-popping 1426, 552, 831. You do some Olympic-style scoring, you throw out the 1426 and throw out the 552, and what do you got? You got a guy who averages 850 yards a year going into a new offense. And here's the big thing. Here's some strategy for you as it relates to the wide receiver position. The NCAA is giving us 20 to 25 wide receivers a year. And I got news for you. Is Juju even in the top 10 athletically in this class? If Juju was in this class, if he was with the Batemans and the Moores and the Smiths and the Waddles and the Chases, where's Juju going to go in this class athletically? Somewhere around the middle. You don't know where he's going. He's going to go to a new team, not always a recipe for success when wide receivers, and I said it earlier on Twitter, Juju Smith-Schuster to me is what happens if Sterling Shepard could stay healthy and play 14 to 16 games a year. That's really who he is. He gets a lot of love because he's an interesting fella. He does neat TikToks, and I tell you what, he's a damn good human being. He invests a lot of his time and resources into helping the community. He's a Steeler, one of the most popular teams in the NFL. But all of that doesn't give me a popcorn fart's worth of value for Juju Smith in a dynasty. If I could get the 108 for Juju Smith in a super flex, if I could get the 106 in a non super flex, I'm gone. I'm going to cash in my Juju chips and I'm going to invest in a Rashad Bateman, a Rondale Moore, a Devonta Smith, a Jalen Waddle. But anyway, you get my point. It's time to stop clinging to name value in dynasty. You know, I did the same thing, by the way. I'm sharing with you guys the lessons I've learned from my own bad beats over the year. This is when I fell in love with a guy from Michigan named Braylon Edwards. And I was always going to recapture the heat that was that 1,600 yard and 16 TD season with Derek Johnson, Derek something. I don't know. He made a Pro Bowl that year. He was a Brown. But I always thought he was going to recapture that magic. And he never recaptured that magic. That one mysterious season just kept me coming around a season too long. So I'm sharing with you the lesson that I've already learned, and I'm not going to learn it again with Juju. Jerry, I know that hurts you. You are a Juju fan, but I've got to come clean. That's how I'm feeling.
I think it's fair. It's tough because what do the Steelers do? They make wide receivers. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Martavis Bryant, and Juju, and Antonio Brown, and we can keep going. Emmanuel Sanders. They always have. They probably will continue to do the same exact thing. He would have to land in a very good spot. And that does not mean he would repeat the 1,400-yard season. So you are hoping that Juju does what Allen Robinson did and not what Braylon Edwards did, where it took a little bit and then Allen Robinson got cooking again, and now you can find him at the, I don't know, wide receiver 12-ish, sort of that back-end wide receiver 1, high-end RB or wide receiver 2 range. I think it's fair. I think everybody hates Juju, though. So I do think you can get him for relatively cheap. I think he is a wide receiver 3 on a championship level team. I don't know if you're going to be able to get him for that, though. I don't think he will slip that far in a startup to where that's where you would get him. So that's going to be tough. So I'm with you. I'm cool with it. I'm going to take a guy that's consistent. He has been dominant. And we've heard his name since he went like 6th overall in the draft to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans. And it's not because I don't think Mike Evans is a dog. Now, he whines. Oh, my God. He whines. He's like the LeBron James of the NFL. He cries for a flag every single time he doesn't catch the ball. And he every time, that hand signal where you reach for the pocket and you throw the flag, that's him every time. It's just pretty touchdown dependent. Now, he eclipsed 1,000 yards this year. Just barely. He hit 1,006. So he did just enough to keep that streak going. But it's the 13 touchdowns that made you love him. It's just rough. And especially when we don't know what the situation with Tom Brady is. Jameis Winston is no longer there to just chuck up YOLO balls to him. So it would be one thing if Jameis was just sitting on the bench and that was the heir apparent and you knew that could happen, which is sort of why I didn't put Michael Thomas in this situation because, I think Michael Thomas does, if Drew Brees leaves, at least have somebody that can get him the ball. Tom Brady is a endless, timeless wonder that is he's a scientific anomaly is what he is. So I don't know. Maybe he continues playing for all we know. Maybe he really goes to 45. Maybe he goes to 52. I don't know. Gambling that he goes much longer, though, is just a risk I'm not willing to take. And in the event that, and they got their ring, they got the Super Bowl that Tampa Bay wanted. I wouldn't be shocked if they, were happy to restart at some point. Chris Godwin, I would guess he probably does not sign the franchise tag or go there because that man can get paid because he's a young man. Leonard Fournette is getting to the end. I mean, Ronald Jones is okay. He showed some things that I wanted to see, I guess, but I don't know. That team could not be in the same situation offensively very soon. And you're still not seeing the consistency with Mike Evans outside of the touchdowns, which is fine. He did have a couple games where he was very big, but you see a lot of these 40 yards and a touchdown.
Can I hit you with a Mike Evans stat that'll blow your mind?
Okay, go ahead.
So we have a Patreon betting group that we make bets together. Obviously, I'm a degenerate. I host a couple of gambling shows in season. We're going to roll one out next week, looking at some season totals and maybe some draft props. But Mike Evans, so I made a lot of money betting his unders in the playoffs. So he played 20 games in total, 4 playoff games, 16 regular season games. He had 64 or less yards in 14 of 20 games. 70% of the time, he gave you 64 or less receiving yards with Tom Brady. That man, the name going into year 8, he'll be 28, not a death sentence, but he'll be 28 going into the start of the season. I mean, if he has a touchdown regression year, where does that leave you? Jerry, I think that's the great call. I think that's your best call of the episode. So I'm going to give you a tip of the Titleist cap, and I'm going to go to the desert. Are you ready?
Yep.
DeAndre Hopkins, man.
Yeah. You gave it away.
Yeah, man, going to the desert. I mean, here's the thing. He is coming off of his 3rd best yardage season of his career, and he tied a career high with 115 receptions. But the truth is that he only had 7 100-yard receiving games. And he had 55 or less yards. So after their bye in week 8, those final 9 games, he had 55 or less yards in 6 of those 9. So of the final 9 games, 55 or less yards. And he's going into year 9. There are still people in your Dynasty League that think he is a wide receiver 1 in a startup. In redraft, sure. Again, you want to hitch your wagon to this dude because, again, the longer you delay, the less they'll pay. That means the other GM you're trying. Every minute, every day. Hey, it's a commercial here locally for a like a mom and pop furniture joint. I just repurposed it. Yeah, but don't delay, or you will not get paid because it's a simple game of numbers. More Dynasty services, again, great job of player valuation. You don't want to move him now. You want to move him after your rookie draft. So at this point, keep him in your hip pocket. You'll be able to sell that 115 receptions. You'll be able to sell his 3rd highest career receiving yards. You'll be able to sell going into year 2 with Kyler Murray. You'll be able to sell. It won't be a COVID offseason anymore. You'll have a lot of great selling features with DeAndre Hopkins. You just have to, and now's a great time. So many other Dynasty services are recommending that you sell him. And when you're not, you just got to sit there and just shrug. I'm not selling today. It's not a lie. It's not the truth. But if they come with a dump truck full of picks and players, we'll certainly move DeAndre Hopkins. But that other GM in your league is going to be, I wonder why he's not moving him. And you know what? And you can just say, hey, he had 115 catches last year's why. Or he had his 3rd most receiving yards ever last year. And then you let the rookie draft go, you let free agency go. Then you circle back around to that owner who maybe had a little interest and say, you know what, let's talk. You wound up with this player in the draft, or you have this player on your roster. Hey, man, let's talk. Hey, fellow GM, let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins. Then you unload. Because if you do it right now, you're following the generic Dynasty advice you're getting everywhere, and you seem thirsty as can be. And you just look desperate to move. But if you play it a little bit different than your league mates play it or other Dynasty GMs play it, it won't be as obvious. Because if you go trying to sell him now, you might as well wear a sign around your neck like a sucker with a Born to Lose tattoo across your forehead. If not, you might as well wait, move him when the opportunity's right, because what's going to happen? The fantasy footballers in their redraft show are going to be drafting him high. Matthew Berry on his redraft show are going to be, talking him up. Let someone else artificially inflate their value because dynasty players listen to redraft shows. Then, and only then, do you swoop in and make a move on him. And maybe you only wind up with a young player and a 2022 first. That's cool. I'm down. I'm hip with that, man. I'm good. So I'm moving DeAndre Hopkins. There's a little how-to behind how my mind works, the mind of Memphis, if you will. Jerry, give us one more. Give us one more guy. And anything on Mr. Hopkins or my tactics?
The tactic is the most important thing that you just mentioned. There is so many situations, because what do we talk about all the time with rookie picks? Wait till you get closer to the draft because they'll increase in value every single time. Here's the thing about players like DeAndre Hopkins. When teams start to get excited about winning a championship, when they start seeing that their team is in second or in third or in first, and the trophy is there and the money is there, everybody starts to value players like him. They start valuing redraft players much higher. I love it. And the problem that I see everywhere, I am in a lot of leagues. I know you are too. I know everybody that's listening right now is too. You don't see that. You don't see that kind of discipline with a lot of teams where they want to make the trade and they want to do it, but they're trading the wrong people at the wrong time. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is a perfect scenario like that. Wait until you get in season, and then you can just milk that puppy dry and it'll be great for you. But my guy, what the hell? I might as well piss on the Detroit Lions a little bit more. Kenny Golladay. Randy, he had his good season. Matthew Stafford comes out his first 8 games, and he's on fire. And then David Blau comes in, and Jeff Driscoll or whoever the hell else they had. And Kenny Golladay was still eating. And he was still getting you fantasy points. And he was going nutso. And he had a 1,200-yard season, 11 touchdowns. Oh, my goodness gracious. We got to see Matthew Stafford, this whole year. He played 5 games. He had 300 and some yards. Kenny Golladay, that is, with Stafford. Then he got hurt. He's going to be what? Like 28, I think? I think he's 28 next year. We've seen one.
That man, he will turn 28 in season. November 3rd, he will turn 28. So this is technically what if you believe the industry standard, this is his apex season. But yes, that you wanted to know that it's the man's age, 27. So 27,
which seems crazy, but he came into the league at 24. So we've already seen this man hit the rise, and now he's going to start to hit the descend already. And okay, let's say he signs this franchise tag. We're going to go multiple situations. He signs the franchise tag with the Detroit Lions, who are going to be a dog crap team that are going to win 4 games, or about. We talked about the hard schedule. We talked about the lack of talent. They were already a bad team this year. They probably got worse. What's he really going to do? We're talking about a new head coach. We're talking about a new everything. Everything. It seems like it's a struggle. Let's say he goes somewhere else. What are they going to sign him to? You think someone's going to sign a guy who's coming off a major injury, who missed 11 games last year, has one good season, one serviceable season? Where is the long-term appeal of Kenny Golladay? He's a big guy, and he can make some great catches. He has never been one of these monster guys. He's never been Julio. He's never been Babytron. That was a stupid nickname. It never should have existed. He's not that guy. He's just not. I think he is an easy sell. I don't think Kenny Golladay is going to be a relevant fantasy asset, by 2023. I really don't.
That's hurtful because I'm a guy with a couple of Kenny Golladay shares out there.
But do you disagree? If you disagree, I would love it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, because if Kenny Galladay winds up on the Ravens, that's no bueno. That's the.
Oh
I
God,
mean,
that's not. I wasn't even thinking about something that bad. That's
what if he goes to
gross.
the
That just made me
Patriots?
want to throw up.
What
Ew,
about even worse? I mean,
ew.
where? So you got to, and I don't have it pulled up, or I would do it for you. But this is another tactic. Go to teams that have cap space. Think about the amount of money Kenny Galladay is going to want, and where could he go? Best case scenario, he goes to the New York Giants. He goes to the New York Giants. He allows everybody to work down a level. There's some volume there. I like Daniel Jones. Okay, there's a positive. Maybe he goes to New York. Works opposite of Denzel Mims. That's a team that's going to have some capital. He could go to Jacksonville. And Jerry, you ready for one more? He could poop on the value of guys like DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, but he's not guaranteed. If I'm Kenny Galladay, I'm praying like hell that I get that $16.5 million franchise tag and let me ride one more year in the Motor City. See what I did there, Jerry? Ride
Hmm.
Motor City. Let me
Like a
ride
pro.
one. Let me ride one more year in the Motor City until the cap situation turns around, and I can get another pull at the big dollars in 2022. So I can't say I blame you. That one, out of everything you brought up, that one probably cuts me the deepest because I probably believe in Kenny Galladay more than anybody. But Jerry, man, I believe in what we're doing here, man. I'm ready for next week. We're going to do our free agency preview show. I believe that's what's on deck next week. And man, we got some guests coming up. We got some big things coming up, man. But what do you need these people to know? What's going on in Jerry world? How can you help them be better than they were yesterday?
Listen, the longer you delay, the lower you'll get paid, man. I honestly, I think that was the
That's a
best line.
T-shirt.
Oh,
That's a T-shirt.
that is a T-shirt.
The
You make sure
Dynasty
it's not
Warzone.
copyrighted from the mom and pop down in Indy, but
Prove
that's
it. Prove where I stole it from.
that I think that was honestly the best part of the entire show because it's something that just does not happen. Everybody wants to talk about trades and everything else, but they don't actually, they're not disciplined enough to trade the correct pieces at the correct time. They just everything gets lumped up into the same thing. I think it is an untapped, unexploited area of this game. So that was my favorite part, at least. That's what I took from it.
If you delay, you won't get that pay. So and that's the thing that I enjoy doing. I do that a lot at the Dynasty Happy Hour Contractor. It's one thing to tell you who to trade. It's another thing to tell you how to trade for them, and the deals that you can make. And we do a lot of that stuff here at the Dynasty Warzone, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're going to get out of here. I'm going to thank my co-host. I'm going to thank Jerry. Guys, lots of good stuff on tap. You got to make sure you rate, review, share, and subscribe every single place you can. It costs you nothing to do it. If you're interested in the Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. We mentioned Viridian Global. And on the way out, I'm gonna mention my man, Matt Vincent, Hate Brand Goods. This is my athletic apparel. If you want to follow me personally, it's Memphis185. And all those funky, funky shorts that I'm wearing are courtesy of Hate Brand Goods. If you use promo code Memphis at checkout, you will save. And on behalf of that man, his name is Jerry Sinclair. You can follow him at JerrySinDWZ. My name is Memphis. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis. And remember, here at the Dynasty Warzone, we are just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We will see you next week with more Dynasty goodness. Take care, guys. Have a great week.